Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We definitely are working to bring back your love for reading. So listen to this. Belinda Bembridge's perfect life falls apart when her perfect husband, Kwame, is struck down at the side of a dirt road. And on his deathbed, he asks her to do the unthinkable. Are you just waiting for me to tell you what that is? Yeah, that's what books will do to you. So let's welcome Kimolisa Mings, who is an author, as we continue with the next chapter. Uh, I was reading that like a pro, but the excitement was building definitely. So, welcome to Morning Barbados. So good to have you with us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right,
Yeah.
first of all, tell me what fuels your love for writing, because there must be a love of writing that you can pull together an entire book.
Well, from when I was a small child, I've been reading, and from there, I started to write. And then one day, I had an assignment in English class, which was to write poetry, this poem. And after in my teacher, she said that it was very good. So from then on, I had started writing poetry, and that was for since I was 13. So we're looking at 30 years. And around 2012, I discovered that there is self-publishing, and there seemed to be like a switch that is just like where I decided, okay, let me start writing longer fiction. So I started with a short story, and as time progressed, it just became longer and longer. So that's how I started in writing.
All right, so that's something that you actively worked at, or would you say that it just
Oh,
came
yeah.
naturally? It was a natural progression to move from poetry and short poems into writing longer works.
Yes, because with poetry, it was more of a thing that I do it. I didn't have to be paid every day. I was just writing. And from the longer fiction, it was just a natural progression. And it's amazing that once you decide that you're going to be doing it, more stories come to mind. So, like right now, although I have a couple books out, there's like about 10 in my head, and I'm just like struggling just to get one out at a time. So,
Did you
each
have to
story, it just,
Okay, did you have to advance your learning? Because I'm always very intrigued by writers being able to express themselves in the way that you do within the pages of this book, His Last Wish. I do a lot of writing myself, not as much as I used
Mhm.
to when I was younger, but I've always thought, okay, I might have to go back to school to learn how to write. So, it kind of rolls off the pages the way that I see you do. Is this something that has come naturally, or did you have to go back to school to kind of learn to get it out on paper in this way?
Well, actually, this brings me back to actually one of the books I did read, which was Stephen King's On Writing, where it's encouraged that you read. Because the more you intake in terms of just general fiction or the particular fiction that you're interested in, you learn through the pattern of other writers. But then what I've also discovered is that different people approach writing differently. It's like your own fingerprint, your own earprint, even. So what works for me may not work for you. And I'm not, I'm afraid of going to continued education because I want to settle in and do the work. But what I've seen for me works is like books on writing. I started writing and then I got reviews and I tweaked, like, or I would have taken like maybe a workshop to get better. But then what I've discovered is like the books on writing. There is Save the Cat. There is um, a book on emotional writing. So there's more and more books coming out. So you may find that you may have a problem here, and there's sure to be a book on writing. And strangely enough, there is a book by Dean Koontz on how to write a bestseller, which is now $500 because it's out of print. But then you see, he's been doing it so long that I can understand why it costs that much.
All right, Kimolisa, talk to me about your process because you also mentioned that right now you have about 10 stories in your head circulating, just waiting to come out. So, what's your process like? Once you're writing, do you need to kind of draw away and get into yourself? Do you still do your regular activities? What's your writing process like, or does it differ as you write different things at different times?
Well, and that's why I kind of like is that I'm ever growing. So before I used to just write whatever came to mind. Sometimes I'm like the reader where the story unravels itself. But then what I've realized is that readers have expectations. So that's why it comes down to reading the books on like the craft. So you know what the readers expect and you formulate your books around that. So now what I do is I outline. I know what's expected and I have the idea of the characters, what they want, what they need. And then from there, I create the outline. And then from there, I would have that as my roadmap to writing the story. But don't get me wrong, it's not easy because sometimes you're writing and then it's like you get stuck. So you have to sit down and kind of workshop it out as to see where is this going. You have to kind of remember what is the character wanting, needing. And then sometimes you have to maybe throw out 100 pages because it's just not working. So it's not so much something that flows. It's something that you have to work at times. But then
Uh,
it's very rewarding.
okay, just like our last author, I believe you're self-published, yes?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so how do you make that determination? All right, I'm going to move to publish these works myself. Could it be that there are not enough opportunities for authors to be able to get the necessary attention that they need to be able to get their works published? Was this something you actively pursued? And then after it, made a decision, okay, I'm going to have to get this out myself. What was that process like?
Well, when I started, and as I mentioned before with the poetry, I was just doing it. I was just writing it. And I have no great ambitions of being traditionally published at the time when I started. I just wanted to put the works out. And as I would say, like 10 years ago, it became apparent that you could do it. There was Kindle, there was Smashwords at the time. And that's how I came into it, whereas Smashwords is a ebook um, platform where you can publish as well as sell your books to through Smashwords as well as through different ebook sellers like Apple Books and Kobo and Barnes and Nobles. But then I transitioned to Amazon, which has a bigger marketplace. So personally, to be frank, between the two of us, I'm a wuss, and I didn't really believe in my work enough to say approach a traditional publishing. But I believe in time I would like to do so and more focus on a romance imprint than, say, just general fiction.
Well, that's what
But
I
then,
was
as I
about to
said,
ask.
everybody,
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to ask you because, as they were scrolling down, I saw some muscles on the covers of some of
oh,
those
yeah.
pages. And I was thinking, ooh, this is a lot of romance. So, you just said it. That's something that I guess you prefer to write. Very, very interesting. So talk to us about your body of works quickly, even though we took a look briefly at his last wish, which is one of your books, I would imagine the
Mhm.
latest one, but
Yeah.
talk to us about your body of work generally.
Well, initially, I had started writing in the genre Black women, white women, BWM, romance. But then it started to feel a little uncomfortable, and a friend did turn to me and she asked why I didn't write in the Caribbean. So I decided, okay, let me do that. And actually, I had written a mystery, a detective mystery in the Caribbean, and I found it quite fun, because I didn't want to use my island so much, but I would like to use references to it. So the more I wrote in the Caribbean, the more I enjoyed it. And it was kind of nice to see things I know and to have mentalities that I can relate to. So that's where I started. And then I had done the prequel to His Last Wish which was The Pleasure Is Mine. And from there, I decided to write short stories. So that are under the banner of Kinky Caribbean. So there are, as the name kind of implies.
All right, let's
So
close out in talking about this one, His Last Wish.
mhm.
Tell us about this one. I think one of the lines I saw in this one was real and messy. So
Oh
let's talk
yeah.
about this particular story.
Well, this story, as I said, it was a sequel to The Pleasure Is Mine. And although the what do you call it? The cornerstone of those stories is the Sapadilla Resort and Spa and the Carlson family. I was more focused on the female protagonist, whereas she believes she has happily ever after, and she because she had that what she considered like the 80% in her relationship, she was willing to ignore the underlying 20%, not realizing that in that 20% was a major thing that she wanted. And the one thing that her perfect husband, was denying her. But strangely enough, this is the reason that he ends up dying. And in her granting her his last wish, she almost granting his final wish, she realized that there was more to him than she realized, and that's where the story kind of un- unravels. Where it's also her discovering who he is and why he did it, as well as forgiving and moving on and embracing what she really wants in a relationship and in her happily ever after.
Wow, definitely provocative, if not only under the theme Kinky Caribbean with
Oh,
all
yeah, that was
is
fun.
and the Sapadilla Resort and Spa.
Yes.
Hey, well, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing with us this morning. I would
Thank you for
encourage
having me.
anyone to check your books out. Thank you. It's called His Last Wish, and that is, of course, your last presentation. So thank you so much. We'll continue to follow you online.
Thank you.
All right, author Kimolisa Mings sharing in the next chapter.